Welcome back to The Bizarre Ones, the podcast where we explore the strange, the unexplained, and the downright bizarre. I'm your host, Kyle Lacrosse, and today we're diving into one of the most mysterious incidences in aviation history, the vanishing of Flight 19. Yes, you heard me right, the Flight of 19. Picture this. It's December 5th, 1945, and 5 military bombers take off from a naval base in Florida, embarking what should have been a routine training mission. But what unfolds next defies logic and explanation. The planes and their crews vanish without a trace, leaving behind a legacy of questions and theories that still haunt the Bermuda Triangle today. So what really happened to Flight 19? Let's unravel this eerie tale. On that fateful day, Flight 19 consisted of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, piloted by a total of 14 men. They took off from the Naval Air Station, Fort Lauderdale, around 2:10 p.m. Filled with confidence and excitement, their mission was straightforward, a navigation training flight that would last about anywhere around 2 hours, if you will. But the plane soared through the skies. Things began to go awry. About an hour into the flight, one of the pilots, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, reported something alarming. They were lost. Taylor believed that they had veered off course and were now over the vast Atlantic Ocean. This realization sparked panic, not only in Taylor, but also among the other pilots, as they faced the daunting reality of being lost in open water. See, because they were on open water, so there was no bases near, nowhere to land. Like, they ran out of fuel. They were, screwed. So as the situation escalated, Taylor and his crew communicated their confusion and disorientation to their naval base. They were instructed to fly east toward Florida. But as they tried to navigate, the more they became entangled in the mysteries of the skies. The communication, became frantic. Taylor reported that they were flying in circles, trying desperately to regroup. It was around 6 p.m. when Taylor sent his last message, stating they were unable to locate land and were running low on fuel. Just moments later, Flight 19 disappeared from radar, vanishing into the blue expanse without a trace. After the disappearance, a massive search effort was launched. Multiple ships and aircraft joined the fray, hoping to locate the missing planes and their crews. Among the searchers was a rescue plane, a PBM Mariner, equipped for long-range search and rescue missions. But this is where it gets even more mysterious and tragic, because tragically, it too would vanish along with 13 crew members aboard. So first, you have the Flight 19 and all these other planes vanish, and then this PBM Mariner that's equipped for this kind of mission just disappears, and everyone's like, where did it go? What happened? So imagine the chaos and confusion at the naval base. Families were waiting for news, and hopes were dashed as the search yielded no results. They wanted to know what happened to their loved ones. They wanted to know where they were, and there were no answers. Nobody had any answers of what happened. They kept on searching. In fact, for several days, the search continued, covering vast areas of ocean. Still no wreckage or bodies were ever recovered, leading to more speculation about the Flight 19 and the fate of its crew. No bodies. Imagine that. No wreckage. So it wasn't like they lost fuel and crashed. And still to this day, there's nothing. So what happened to Flight 19? Theories abound, and the mystery has fueled speculation for decades. One of the most popular expansions ties the incident to the infamous Bermuda Triangle. The region of the North Atlantic where numerous vessels and aircraft had reportedly disappeared under numerous and mysterious circumstances. Many believe this area holds some kind of supernatural power or unique environmental factors. In fact, Amelia Earhart, who tried to take her flight around the world, actually supposedly was in the area of Bermuda Triangle when her plane vanished and she was never seen from again. So it makes sense that people would be like, well, perhaps that's what happened to Flight 19. Perhaps that's what's happened to the PB and Mariner, as they all disappeared inside the Bermuda Triangle. So some even suggest that unusual magnetic fields in the area could disrupt navigation equipment, leading pilots astray. So what do you think? Is it merely a coincidence that this incident occurred in such a notorious region? Is there some kind of explanation? Or is it human error? See, that's another theory, right? Another theory points to human error. Aviation experts propose that Taylor's confusion and panic may have led to miscalculations, ultimately sending the planes further out to sea. It's easy to imagine how disorienting it would be to lost over the ocean with no landmarks in sight at all, especially under the pressure that he was under. And let's also not forget the weather. Reports indicated that conditions were poor that day, with fog and storms possibly contributing to the pilot's disorientation. In such circumstances, it's plausible that they struggled to maintain their bearings. But it's also plausible that something paranormal in origin, something strange and outright bizarre, led to their disappearance. In fact, because it's not solved to this day. Like, to this day, nobody knows what happened. There's still no official answers. So, I mean, it could be anything. Then there are more far-fetched theories. Some enthusiasts have speculated about extraterrestrial involvement, aliens, suggesting that UFOs, or now as they're known as UAPs, because they used to be known as identified flying objects, now they're known as unidentified aerial phenomenon. Still the same thing. They believe that might be responsible for their disappearance. While this idea captures the imagination, a lot of people say it lacks any credible evidence. Still, it's a reminder of how mysterious this case remains. What about the psychological aspect? Imagine the fear and adrenaline coursing through the pilots as they realized they were lost. The confusion that could lead to errors in judgment. The human mind can play tricks in high-stress situations, can it? And so the thing is they don't know. Like, there's so many disappearances around the Bermuda Triangle. So I'm going to list a few real quick of people that have disappeared, or ships that have disappeared around the Bermuda Triangle. So altogether, the Bermuda Triangle, which is the section of the North Atlantic Ocean off North America, in which more than 50 ships and 20 airplanes have said to have mysteriously disappeared. One of these ships that disappeared in the same area where Flight 19 disappeared is the ship HMS Atalanta. It was a sail training ship and disappeared with her entire crew after setting sail from the Royal Naval Dockyard, Bermuda, from Falmouth, England on January 31st, 1880. Then you have the USS Cyclops. This incident resulted in the single largest loss of life in the history of the U.S. Navy, not related to combat, occurred when the collier Cyclops carried a full load of manganese ore and one engine out of action, went missing without a trace of crew of 306 people sometime after March 4th, 1918, after departing the island of Barbados. There's no strong evidence for any single theory, but many independent theories exist. Then there's the Carroll A. Deering. 5-masted schooner built in 1919 was found aground and abandoned at Diamond Shoals near Cape Hatteras, North Carolina on 31st of January of 1921. FBI investigation to Deering scrutinized, then ruled out multiple theories as to how and why the ship was abandoned, including piracy, domestic communist sabotages, and the involvement of rum runners. Then, of course, there's Flight 19. Then there's the Star Tiger and Star Ariel. The GAHNP Star Tiger disappeared on January 30th, 1948 on a flight from the Azores to Bermuda. GAGRE Star Ariel disappeared on January 17th, 1949 on a flight from Bermuda to Kingston, Jamaica. Both were Avro Tudor 4 passenger aircraft operated by the British South American Airways. Both planes were operating at the very limits of their range, and the slightest error or fault in the equipment could keep them from reaching the small island. Then there's the Douglas DC-3. On January 28, 1948, a Douglas DC-3 aircraft number NC-16002 disappeared while on a flight from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Miami. No trace of the aircraft or the 32 people on board was ever found. A Civil Aeronautics Board investigation found that there was insufficient information available on which to determine the probable cause of the disappearance. Then you have the Connemara 4, a pleasure yacht, which was found adrift on the Atlantic south of Bermuda on September 26, 1955. It was usually stated in the stories that the crew vanished while the yacht survived being at sea during 3 hurricanes. The 1955 Atlantic hurricane season shows Hurricane Lone passing nearby between 14th and 18th of September, with Bermuda being affected by winds of almost gale force. In the second book on the Bermuda Triangle, Weiner quoted from a letter he had received from Mr. J.E. Chalonor of Barbados. On the morning of September 22nd, Connemara 4 was lying to heavy mooring in the open roadstead of Carlisle Bay. Because of the approaching hurricane, the owner strengthened the mooring ropes and put out 2 additional anchors. There was little else he could do, as the exposed mooring was the only available anchorage. On Carlisle Bay, the sea, in the wake of Hurricane Janet, was awe-inspiring and dangerous. The owners of the Connemara 4 observed that she had disappeared, and an investigation that revealed that she had dragged her moorings and gone to sea. Then you have the KC-135 Strato tankers. On August 28, 1963, a pair of U.S. Air Force KC-135 Strato tanker aircraft collided and crashed into the Atlantic 300 miles west of Bermuda. People say that while the 2 aircraft did collide, there are 2 distinct crash sites separated by over 160 miles of water. However, Kunch's research showed that unclassified version of the Air Force investigation report revealed that debris field defining the second crash site was examined by a search and rescue ship and found to be a massive seaweed and driftwood tangled in an old buoy. In other words, that crew was also not found. The Fate magazine published Sea Mystery at Our Back Door, a short article by George X. Sand that was the first to lay out about the Bermuda Triangle. He recounted the loss of several planes and ships since World War II, the disappearance of Sandra, a tramp steamer, this December 1945 loss of Flight 19, which is what this podcast episode is about, a group of 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers on a training mission, the January 1948 disappearance of Star Tiger, a British South American Airways passenger airplane, the March 1948 disappearing of a fishing skiff with 3 men, including jockey Albert Snyder, and the December 1948 disappearance of an airborne transport DC-3 charter flight en route from Puerto Rico to Miami, and the January 1949 disappearance of the Star Ariel, another BSAA passenger airplane. So back on the Flight 19 thing. Flight 19 was covered again in the April 1962 issue of the American Legion magazine. In it, the author Alan W. Ickert wrote that the flight leader had been saying, "We cannot be sure of any direction. Everything is wrong. Strange. The ocean doesn't look like it should." The ocean doesn't look like it should, is what he said. So there was something going on that, in my personal opinion, it was paranormal or unexplained, some kind of science that we have not discovered yet. Because the ocean doesn't look as it should. This is a person that was a well-trained pilot, well-trained in being a flight leader. He made flight leader. You don't make flight leader by not knowing your stuff. So the fact that to him the ocean looked off says something else was going on. In February 1964, Vincent Gaddis wrote an article, The Daily Bermuda Triangle, in Argosy, saying Flight 19 and other disappearances were a part of a strange events in the region dating back to at least 1840. The next year, Gaddis expanded the article into a book, Invisible Horizon. Other writers elaborated on Gaddis's idea, including John Wallace Spencer in Limbo of the Lost, 1969, and then reprinted in 1973, Charles Berlitz in the Bermuda Triangle in 1974, and Richard Weiner, The Devil's Triangle, 1974. Various of these authors incorporate supernatural elements. Sand's article in Fate described the area of the Bermuda Triangle as a watery triangle bound roughly by Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. The Agosti article by Gaddis further delineated the boundaries, given its vertices as Miami, San Juan, and Bermuda. Subsequent writers did not necessarily follow this definition. Some writers have given different boundaries. So possibly Flight 19 could be a result of the paranormal aspects of the Bermuda Triangle. But tell me what you think. What do you think happened to Flight 19? Were the pilots simply lost in the enigmatic Bermuda Triangle? Or was something more sinister at play? Perhaps sabotage, perhaps since at this time I believe that the United States did not have a peaceful existence with Cuba. So was this perhaps an attack by Cuba for retaliation for some of the things that America had done to Cuba? The disappearance remains a haunting mystery in aviation history, prompting questions about the Bermuda Triangle, human error, and the unknown forces of nature. It serves as a reminder that not all questions have clear answers, and that sometimes the bizarre remains just that, bizarre. So thank you for joining me in this episode of The Bizarre Ones. I hope you found the story of Flight 19 as intriguing as I do. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following this podcast and sharing it with other fellow mystery enthusiasts. Join me next time as we dive into another bizarre tale that will keep you guessing. Until then, stay informed, stay curious, and stay bizarre.